BTS news, tears and regrets, the full story of Jikook that never came to light, behind the stage spotlight, sweet smiles on camera, and the cheers of fans who always say their names with love, Jungkook and Jimin, two figures from BTS who are so close, apparently keep the story that no one has ever told intact. It's not about fame. It's not about the music. It's about two human beings, two hearts that were once each other's home, then slowly move away from each other in silence, leaving behind wounds, tears, and regrets. And for the first time, their closest source opened this story, the story that has been buried tightly. Because it is considered too personal, too painful. Since the trainee days, Jimin and Jungkook's relationship is not an ordinary relationship. They come from different cities, different backgrounds, and different ages. But something between them intertwined very quickly. Like two magnets filling each other's emptiness, Jungkook once said, "Jimin Hyung is like the morning sun, warm and makes me want to be better." And Jimin once said, "Jungkook is the reason I don't give up on the toughest days." They don't always show it to each other with words, but their actions speak louder than anything. Waiting for each other to finish training. Make sure that one eats, despite being tired. And sitting together in silence in the dorm room when the day is so tiring. Yet, like all stories too perfect to survive, small cracks begin to appear. Without them realizing as BTS goes global, their time to talk is limited. Each one has responsibilities, projects, and pressure from all sides. Jimin was seen getting busy with his solo recordings, while Jungkook began to develop his music independently. But in the midst of all that, a pent-up longing began to grow. The problem is, they don't tell each other. One night, according to the story of one of their old managers, Jimin sat alone in a corner of the studio staring at a cell phone that never rang. He's waiting for Jungkook to call, but the phone remained silent. And he just smiled a little and then wrote something in his little book. What Jimin wrote that night was just one sentence. Sometimes the people you want to talk to the most are the ones you have the hardest time contacting. When they enter the period of conscription, everything changes dramatically. Jimin and Jungkook are placed in different locations. At first, they still send messages to each other through the mail and leave greetings through unit colleagues. But an incident that was not explained publicly caused the communication to stop. Some rumors say there is a big misunderstanding. Some blamed the military for withholding the letters. Others said that Jimin had written something too honest in his letter, and Jungkook didn't know what to reply with. To be sure, one of the coaches revealed, "We know they care about each other, but they are too afraid to hurt each other." So both of them chose silence, and that was the most painful. A few months after the silence, Jungkook suffered a minor injury in a training session. While undergoing recovery, he asked to be brought a booklet where he used to write songs. And that night, he wrote one song not for the world, but for someone. The song was never released, but a fragment of the lyrics was leaked by one of Jungkook's friends. "I'm sorry to be silent for so long, until you think I'm not listening anymore. Yet every night, you're still alive in my voice. Hyung, I'm just scared. I don't deserve to be forgiven." That's not a song for the army. That's a song for one person, Park Jimin. When the letter from Jungkook finally arrived months after their brief last meeting, Jimin burst into tears. He didn't cry hard, but her tears came down slowly as she read the handwriting that was so familiar to her. According to a colleague, Jimin did not say anything after reading the letter. He just grabbed the paper and stared out the window. Then he said quietly, "If time could be repeated, I would still choose to wait for it, even without an appointment." Although they have not publicly appeared together since military service began, many of their colleagues say that they still look after each other from afar. Not in the form of words, but in the form of hidden attention. When Jimin suffered a minor shoulder injury, one of the nurses found an herbal remedy with a disguised sender's name. But anyone who knows them knows it's from Jungkook. And when Jungkook was seen wearing a small black bracelet during the military apple, the bracelet was exactly the same as the one Jimin had given them on their last birthday before enlistment. Jimin and Jungkook's relationship is a story about love that doesn't always have to be romantic, but full of sacrifice. The story of two souls who understand each other, but sometimes do not know how to express it. A story of silence that hurts, but also holds hope, and to this day, fans around the world are still waiting. Waiting for them to come back together. Waiting for a little smile, one eye contact, or one sentence, "We are fine." Because for Jikook, maybe silence is their language. But to the world, their story is an unfinished poem, day by day past. Between a tight military schedule and non-stop training, both Jimin and Jungkook are now getting used to going a day without each other's voices. Yet there is something they can never throw away, a sense that hangs between hurt and hope. One of the soldiers who served at the site where Jungkook was undergoing his training witnessed an unusual incident. That night, Jungkook sat alone behind the barracks, a quiet place away from surveillance. He brought his notebook, which was later discovered to contain writings about his feelings that he never spoke to anyone about. He writes very slowly, then stopped, stared at the moon for a long time, and whispered, "Does he still remember me?" Meanwhile, Jimin, somewhere else quite far away, became more reserved than ever. He still does his job, he still smiles at his friends, but everyone who knows him knows that smile is no longer as warm as it used to be. One of Jimin's colleagues said, every night after training, he would sit in the dressing room and open his phone, knowing there would be no incoming messages. But still, he waited. The most shocking news came from a military staffer who witnessed firsthand a rare moment. Jimin and Jungkook accidentally meet in a military medical room. At that time, Jimin was undergoing examination for a minor injury to his leg. Jungkook arrived a few minutes later, having to take a sedative for his sleep that was beginning to be disturbed. The two did not know that they would meet. And when the door opened and their gazes met, everyone in the room seemed to fall silent. They didn't talk right away. No hugs, no smiles. Just the eyes looking at each other, and time felt like an eternity. The nurse who witnessed the moment said with teary eyes, "That gaze is not the gaze of two strangers. It was the gaze of two people who kept each other too much, but didn't know where to start." After a few seconds, Jungkook lowered his head and said quietly, "Are you okay?" Jimin replied, "My legs are good, but I don't know about the others." And just like that, they were called to different places. But that one moment left a deep scratch, not a new wound, but perhaps the beginning of healing. The night after the meeting, a roommate of Jimin revealed that Jimin was crying in his sleep. It calls out one name, Kuka, while Jungkook that night wrote the last page in his book. "I don't know if we'll ever go back to the way we were, but tonight, I feel you're still there. And that's enough for me to hold out until tomorrow." To this day, there is no official statement from Jimin or Jungkook about what actually happened. But many are sure that it is not because they hate each other, but because they love each other too deeply, that the wound feels much more painful. Jimin once said in an old interview, "When you are too dear to a person, you are more afraid of losing him because of a small misunderstanding than because of a long distance." And now, those words feel like predictions that are slowly coming true. For the fans who followed this story from the beginning, one thing that never changed was their belief that Jikook, whatever the form of their relationship, it has a bond that cannot be broken by time, distance, or silence. Behind the tears, the wounds, and the regrets, there are still seeds of hope. There's still room to talk. There is still a song that they have not finished singing together, and maybe one quiet day, after all this is over, Jimin and Jungkook will again sit side by side, smile, and say, "I'm sorry. I'm just too scared to lose you." The story between Jungkook and Jimin is not just a story of two idols behind the stage. It is a portrait of complex human relationships, of closeness, distance, misunderstanding, and unspoken feelings. For many, they are companions, perhaps more. But behind all the speculation and analysis, there is a deeper, simple truth. They mean something to each other. Not every story ends with a dramatic hug.